Okay, we're actually going to have a discussion today. And what I want to do is this, I'm finally going to explain the blend operator to you. So let me share the screen and we'll just go straight to the desktop. And here it is. Okay, what we in order to understand the blend operator, you just need to think in terms of the number line. And remember, we like to use bounded numbers, which always are limited to falling between -1 and +1. You can see the cursor moving around, can't you? Okay, good. So all of our numbers are going to fall on this number line somewhere. Now, let me show you the simplest application of the blend operator. Let's say we have two numbers. Whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to come in here and what is wrong? What is wrong? Why can't I get it working? Oh, that's because we're here. Okay. Yes, now, sorry, go back here so you can see it, and then come over here, and let's say we have two numbers. I'll put one number here at -0.4, and another number here at +0.6. Okay, so we will call them A, whoops, which is at -0.4, and B, which I'm going to change to 0.60. Okay, so we have these two numbers. Let's say we wanted to just average them together. Well, you can do that in your head. That's going to be 0.1. So but here's how we would do the same thing with, here, I'll do this here. The same thing geometrically. We put a little number line between them. And this is a number line. Well, for now, we just think about the middle of it. And that lines up, guess what, with 0.1 down here. Wow, isn't that easy? But let's think of this thing as its own number line, running between -1 and +1. So let me do, no, I don't have that. Here, what I'll do is grab this, and then I will duplicate it, and I'll say -1.0, but to indicate that this is for the other line, I will make it, come on, Grant. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I've got to, whoops. Help, I need help, I need my color control. Zip. And that's what I wanted, right? Inspect. There we go. There we go. And now I can make it in blue. I want that to be blue. There we go. Okay. So let me get this out of the way. I'm sorry I'm being so clumsy here. I have practiced this, but I'm not doing it properly. And I can't get it working right. You stupid. Okay, and now we'll take this, duplicate it, put it over here to mark +1. And right in the middle here, this is a number line just like any other. This is 0.0. Okay, so we have the black number line, our full number line, and the blue number line, which is the little number line running between our two numbers that we want to average together. Now the trick is If we just want to average, we use a value here. We use this 0.0 value. But let's imagine that we want to do a weighted average. In that case, there we go, I got it out of the way. In that case, we want to shift this red line some way. So for example, if we put it, about here, that's about plus 0.5 on the blue line. And that would allow us, that would give us a weighting value somewhere around here. So we will call that the third. No, I'm going to correct this. There, we put that here, only now we're using a weighting value of 0.550. And that gives us some number down here, but we don't quite know what that is. Here's how we calculate it. Let me bring up my little, by the way, I want you to point out, this is important to realize that this number line is running from A to B, so it's going in that direction. So this is the positive side of the blue line, and this is the negative side of the blue line. Okay, here's the calculation for you. See, I really did prepare this thing. That's the formula. Oh God, that looks awful, doesn't it? Blah. Okay, let's just plug in the numbers. A in this case is actually minus 0.4, and B is actually 0.6. Look, we got to put in the A. And because it's a negative, we reverse it. Remember, a minus of a minus is a positive, is a plus. So, and then 1 plus C, C is 0.50 over 2. So I've taken this formula here and just plugged in the actual numbers here. Now let's just do the calculation. 1 plus 0.05 over 2 is 1.5 over 2. And whoops, I screwed that up. Wait a minute, let me make sure. Minus 0.4 plus, and this here is 1. And so we have 1.0 times 1.5 over 2. Well, 1.5 over 2 is actually 0.75. And again, we plug in the correct value, minus 0.4. So minus 0.4 times 0.75, and I have screwed up here, gives us a result. Well, that should be 0.3. I can do that in my head, except it's minus 0.3, which is wrong. I did this calculation wrong. So what did I do wrong? Let's see. Minus 0.4, and this is plus 0.6. Minus 0.4, oh, you idiot, 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 idiot. B, and no, that's right, I'm sorry. 1 plus 0.05 over 2 minus 0.4 times 1 times, yeah, that looks good. Minus 0.4, yeah, that looks right. So well, this is always the worst thing when you're teaching and you screw up somehow. I have done something wrong, and I don't know what. So let me simply go to a better example. I need to hide this for a moment and go to, wait a minute. I know what to do. Revert to saved. Come on. Revert. There it is. There. Okay. Now I'll get the numbers right. Damn it. So let's just put it so that A is 0.0. So there is A. How embarrassing. So A is there at 0.0. And B is 0.80. See, I should have just used the example I prepared for the lesson rather than making it up as I'm going along. And so the number line is going to look like this. Good. And C, come on, there we go, is plus 2.5 on the number line, which is going to be about, very roughly speaking, about there. So there's C. And now I've already done the calculation and I've got it right this time, fool. So here we go. We plug in the numbers. A is 0.0, B is minus, A is plus 8, there it is, minus A, 0.0, times 1 plus 2.25 yields 1.25 over 2, which is 0.625. This is 0.8, so there's the 0.8. 0.8 times 625 is, guess what? 0.50. Ta-da! There's 0.50. It works when you do it the right way. Okay, so that's an example of the blend operator working. And we could do different kinds of weightings. You can weight more towards B or more towards A. So the value of this is if you're trying to put two numbers together in a personality calculation, like say, you've got a person's how good they are and how angry they are. And you want to blend those together to make a decision about whether they're going to do something nice or whether they're going to give vent to their anger. Well, if your artistic perception of human nature is that a person's goodness, their virtue is the dominant factor, then you'd move C down here closer to that. Whereas if you think, no, anger always overrules virtue. A person, once they lose their temper, it doesn't matter how good they are, then you're going to push it up near here. So this is how you actually, how you do art with math. Let me show you another example now. I'll close this one and open. I closed the wrong thing, didn't I? No, there we go. Okay, so here's an example. Oh, no, that's just the example I showed you. Okay, close that. Let's do this. Okay, now here's an example. Oh, I didn't get around to fixing this. I don't need these stupid red things. They were for when I was building the website that would allow you to see it. Okay, let's see. Here's an example. Do you remember the example I gave you last week where the guy gives flowers to the gal and she likes that, and so he just keeps giving her more flowers, and she jumps into bed with him because she loves him because he gave her 1,000 flowers. Well, that's ridiculous. Here's an example. I believe I've set this up for that example. Let's say right now, this is how much she likes him, A, 0.2. And, no, wait, I better make sure. Let's make sure here that this is in fact the right one. No, yes, this is the wrong one. This is how you approach a limit. So I'm going to get rid of you and bring up you. This is the example I have. And we can delete that. So let's say right now she likes him at 0.3. And giving flowers makes her like him a little bit more. So what we're going to say is that this is how much more she likes him because he gives her flowers. we're just going to say it's a tiny amount on the blue number line. Minus 0.8 is a very tiny jump. So we're going to say that's the jump that he gets. Whenever he gives her flowers, she likes him this much more. Now, again, this is an artistic decision. You could say, oh, no, 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 flowers aren't that big a deal. We'll make it minus 0.9. Or you could say, oh, wow, flowers. Women fall for flowers all the time. So we're going to make it like plus 0.5. You give her flowers, she loves you. Okay, if that's what you want to say, then, you know, that's your right as an artist. But I'm going to put it here at minus 0.8. And the result of that is an X of 0.37, that right down here. That's, in fact, I'll move this down here. When he gives her flowers, her love for him, her affection for him increases from 0.3 to 0.37. And in fact, here's the calculation we go through: 0.3, 1 minus 0.3. Notice that B is set to 1. This is an upper limit that we're going to approach. When you set it this way, you guarantee that it will never quite reach 1. So we plug in the 1, we do the 1 minus 0.8, crunchity go the numbers, and the end result is 0.37. So ta-da, X is 0.37. The giving the flowers shifted her affection for him by 0.07. Okay, that's nice. Now let's look at the next one. I'm going to hide that for a moment. Come over here and look at the next step, where he does the same thing. Again, get rid of these, they just get in the way. Now she likes him 0.37 because he gave her flowers once. But now he gives her flowers a second time. Again, the effect is minus 0.8. And so we go through the calculation again, crunchity, and we get 0.433 as our X value. And so the shift now is only 0.063. Previously, it was 0.07. You see how the amount of improvement has diminished? That's the whole value of this procedure. You can deal with the fact that doing something over and over and over again produces diminishing returns. So, and in fact, the closer you get to 1, the tinier the net effect is. And in fact, I believe I can show you that now by looking at this one. Yeah, here we are really close to 1. Now, whoops, wrong one. There we go. Now she likes him 0.8, and he gives her flowers, which is going to improve it by minus 0.8 on the blue line. And the end result, crunchity, here's the formula, plug in the numbers, boopity, 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 boo, and we get 0.82. So now the end result is actually right here, 0.82, and the shift is only 0.02. So the closer you get to 1, the tinier that thing gets. If she already likes you a lot, you give her flowers, she'll appreciate it, but she's not going to like you that much more. So that's one example of the utility of the blend operator. But you can use it for a lot of other neat things. Let me jump to the next example here. Come on, there we go. This one, what am I doing here? Oh, this is just an averaging, where we got 2 numbers that we want to blend together, and we have a weighting factor of minus 0.02. Come on, Chris, that's stupid. It should be right there. There. For minus 0.02. And boopity boop. It looks like I made a mistake on, I'm not even gonna try to figure it out. Screw that. That was an intermediate one. Come on. Here's just an example of subtracting. That is, let's say they're at dinner and he sneezes on her food and she doesn't like that. Here the trick is to realize, and she likes him plus 0.2, but he sneezes on her food, so that's gonna make her like him less. Now, the important point to realize is that the number line is going in the other direction. You're starting here, but because you're subtracting, you're heading down towards -1. And so the number line is reversed in direction. So in this case, A is plus 0.2, and B is minus 0.1. If we say that C is 0.0, then we plug in the numbers and we get a minus 0.4, and see, it lines up. With a C of 0, you get an X of minus 0.4. So if he sneezes in her food, she started off liking him plus 0.02, but after sneezing on her food, she likes him a lot less. That was a really rude thing to do. So that's another example. I think I have just one more example here of the blend operator. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is really hairy. You can use the blend operator doubly. That is, you can have the blend operator functioning. That is, you can use a normal blend operator, but before that, you can have a blend operator on top of it. That is, boy, I didn't finish this one, did I? I was so busy working on the other ones. That is, you can say, no, I'm going to, before I do this blend, I'm going to do a blend on top of it. And I'm not going to go into the details of how you do this, but in fact, see, I didn't even finish this. I didn't do that calculation properly, but you can do a one blend first and then another blend. For example, I talked about a person making a decision based on their virtue, their goodness versus their anger. Well, maybe you want to adjust that anger value first based on whether there are a whole bunch of people there or whether there's just that one other person there. If you're in front of a whole bunch of people, like in a restaurant, you're going to kind of limit your anger. You're not going to blow up and start screaming in front of those people. So if you want to take that into account, you could have a blend done first. So you blend the anger down and then you apply the new result into the main calculation. You can do that kind of thing. I'll tell you, it sounds hairy, but if you can do it once, you can do it 2 times or 3 times or whatever. There was another application of blend, I thought, just before we started today. And now I've forgotten it. Let's see. Oh, well. And I wrote the code somewhere. The code for it is very simple, and it's not here either. I'm just going to have to manually search for it. No. I'm going to guess it's here. Yes. There's the code. That's all it takes. It's written this way. It'll work in C, C++, JavaScript, Java. Very simple function. So this will be on the video, so you can copy it down from there if you're interested. let me take some questions now while we, and meanwhile, I will hope that I can remember that other application I thought of. So I don't know. What do you think? Does this, am I pushing it too quickly on you? Is this too much math, too fast? This is the kind of thing I do, I mean, in my head, physics and such, but it may not come. So maybe I went too fast for you guys. What do you think?
No, for me, I found it pretty clear. Maybe I need to practice it a bit, but for a first go, it was really clear. So yeah.
Okay, good. I'm pleased that it does make some sense. And again, let me point out that with the blend operator, you don't need to do any other arithmetic. That is, if you're using bounded numbers, blend will let you do anything you might reasonably want to do. It will allow you to do any kind of personality calculation that you might do. I've used it for all sorts of things, and it is very, I've never encountered a situation where it didn't work for me. A few situations I had to do two levels, two blends, one on top of the other. But that's the only, that's the worst I've ever had to do. Never had to do three blends. So, other comments?
Hey Chris, what's the difference between this type of blend operator and the weighted sum you used, for example, in your book on interactive storytelling? Because they seem very similar in a certain way, but this is more abstract. It can be applied to more things, I think.
Yes, what you're describing, what I had in the book was a sort of the first generation of the idea. And I knew weighted sums are the way to deal with a lot of problems in personality calculations. And so I developed that, and then I advanced it to the idea of the one form of blend. And this version is currently the most advanced. At another point, I actually had I developed a version of blend that worked with 4 terms. It was sort of a tricky blend and very impressive, but I found I never really needed to use it. Sometimes you can just get a little too complicated, but maybe someday, people will take the idea of the blend and they'll apply calculus to it, and we'll have the integral blend or differential blends or partial differential blends. But we don't need to get that complicated. It's very useful just the way it is. And again, the value of all of this is just that it's useful, that it allows you to make your decisions without worrying a lot. Once you've used it a few times, you get familiar with it and you just say, oh yeah, I'll throw in a blend here and I'll blend those 2 personality traits together, weighted by something or other. Other thoughts? Well, then let's open up the discussion for just about anything. Let me ask you what you, how you might choose to, oh, you have a thought, Leonardo? Oh, okay. What you might choose to, or what you might want to be doing here where you think blend might be of some utility. I'm looking for the. There we go. By the way, was everybody able to watch the video that I mentioned that actually that has the animations of the blend operator? So that should certainly have made this interesting or more understandable. I'm going over my notes from last week. Several of you, Yasmina, Sharon, Leonardo, talked about the idea of communication design and using using mathematics to improve your ability to communicate. In this type of application, this is of value for interactive stuff. See, you need to think of communication not as, let me plunk out that beautiful idea and make a beautiful picture that really shows exactly. No, I'd like to, let me digress for a minute to talk about the nature of communication. We have developed, we tend to think of what I call expository communication. Hey, everybody, I'm smart, you're dumb. I'll tell you all sorts of smart things, and then you'll have the smart things in your head. And that works especially well with, say, books, where a smart person can write down all these smart ideas, and then you just buy the book and read the smart ideas, and you're smart now. Well, it doesn't work that way. Or we can do a great video or a great picture or whatever. See, this is all expository, and the idea is that that's efficient. One smart person writes a book, and then we make thousands of copies of the book, and thousands of people read it, and thousands of people learn from it. Hooray, isn't that efficient? Or the smart person gets up and gives a lecture, and the students all listen to the lecture, and presumably they learn that way. The problem is knowledge, you don't just pour knowledge into somebody's head. It's not a thing that you can transfer. Yes, you can transfer facts, intellectual objects, but ideas don't transfer that way. You can't simply tell people, okay, here's the blend operator, do it. Here's the equation for it, now you understand it. No, you don't. Understanding an idea is a much more complex operation, and it cannot be taught in an expository fashion. The best way to understand an idea is to play with it. In fact, I have a video somewhere on my channel of a lecture based on something I gave in Mumbai, India, called the phylogeny of play. And basically I explain the evolutionary history of play starting about 400 million years ago. It turns out play goes that far back, or at least the precursors of it. And it really didn't start until maybe 100 or 150 million years ago. And the way it was done, it all had to do with mammals. Do you know what a gait is? That's an English word that probably you don't immediately know the Italian word for, but gait is an English word referring to the way an animal runs. We know it most often with horses. A horse will walk, and then a horse will trot, and then a horse will gallop. And those are different gaits for horses. Well, you do the same thing. You walk, and then you can go into a trot, which is a different way of running. And then you have the full out running. And again, the way your legs are moving are not just a fast version of what you do when you walk. The sequencing is different. And this is especially true with quadrupeds, four-legged animals. The sequence in which they move their legs changes each time. And that raises a problem. If you've got an animal, for example, have you ever seen the movies where the baby turtles hatch on the beach and then they all run towards the ocean to get into the water before the birds eat them? Wait a minute. How do they know how to run right after they're hatched? Well, obviously, it's programmed into their genes. I mean, the minute they're hatched, their genes, their muscles already know, their brains have been programmed by the genes, so they know how to sequence the muscles to run. That's great. It's really good if you need to be able to run a minute after you hatch. But mammals have at least 4 different gaits. Some mammals have even more. You can't program all of those. They're too many gaits. There's not enough space in the genes to handle all of that. So how do mammals figure out how to run? Well, have you ever watched a baby animal, a baby mammal? I mean, they're like a puppy or a horse or a cat, any fresh baby animal. Well, in fact, look at humans. Look at the way humans learn to walk. You know, baby doesn't come out of the womb and say, "Hey, here I am. I'm going to go run to McDonald's now." He can't do that. Actually, first he just lays there and he just kind of. Babies can't move at all. They use a process where initially their motor control is global. That is, brand new baby, just born, you poke him in the tummy and all of his muscles go off. Arms, legs, face, everything moves around. And then as the baby learns, eventually he's just waving his arms. And then a little later on, as he's getting better, he can wave one arm, and then he can start doing just something with his hands, and then just his fingers. He's sculpting his behavior, cutting down on the muscle actions to get precise motor activity. And so it's a cutting away process that's done by in effect terminating connections in neurons in the brain. So, and in fact, that's how he learns to speak. Initially, he just goes, but later on, as he's listening to you, he mimics, and he mama, and then gets better and better at it until he can say, "The quality of mercy is not." Damn it, I can't even remember the quote. Anyway, so this whole process is one of sculpting away and zeroing in on particular muscle movements by playing with them. The baby eventually gets to the point where he learns how to crawl. Initially, the crawling is flat on the ground. He's just sort of dragging himself across the floor. Later on, he learns to push up, which is, I just realized this is a beautiful, wow, example of, what's his name's law? Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Have you ever heard that one? This is the most meaningful statement in the English language because it's just 3 words. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. And if you knew what those words meant, it would be great. Ontogeny, that's the whole process of development from newborn, or actually from conception to adult. And so you start off with a single egg, and then later on you have a mature adult. That entire process of development is called ontogeny. Phylogeny is the history of a species. That is, we go back about more than 1 billion years, and we have the very first eukaryotic cells, single cell, just like a fertilized egg, right? And then evolution, 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 you start getting animals, all sorts of other stuff. And eventually you get down to, say, a human being or a cat or a crab or whatever. That sequence of developments is called phylogeny. And what was his name? Haeckel, German scientist about 150 years ago. Haeckel realized that the two processes sort of go in parallel. That is, the ontogeny, the way you grow up, recapitulates phylogeny. Now, it's not an iron law. I mean, there are a lot of there are a lot of places where it doesn't work at all. But the comparison is close enough to be intellectually useful. Well, I just realized the same thing happens with locomotion. That is, the way you move. Initially, babies drag themselves along the floor, which is what the earliest reptiles did when they were pre-reptiles, when they emerged onto the land. They were dragging themselves. And then later on, they learned to stand up like lizards so that their body isn't on the floor, on the ground, and that's less friction and they're more efficient. And then, and so babies do that at a certain point. They learn to move their body above the floor. And then we learn to stand up, but babies only walk at that point. They're just doing simple walks. Later on, they have to learn how to run. And how do they do it? By playing. That's why kids need to run all over the place. They're learning how to run. They're learning balance. They're learning about their body sensation and so forth. So play is the way mammals invented play in order to learn multiple gaits. And that gave them all sorts of advantages, because with multiple gaits, you can move at differing speeds with differing efficiencies of energy. And then they started to learn evasion tactics. That is, when we talk about predators and prey, prey learned how to zigzag as they run, which throws the predators off. So predators learned how to anticipate. Anyway, so the point of all of this is that play is the original technology for learning, but play is interactive. And you learn, you understand ideas by playing with them. A child does not learn how to run by reading Running 101 for freshmen. You know, there's no book. It's just done by doing it. And of course, the child falls down a lot and hurts himself. And, you know, that's the way play goes. But that play process really is the only way that we ever learn. I mean, I can talk a lot. I can exposit at you about these ideas, but you're really only going to learn them by playing with them. For example, I have never in my life taken a book or taken a course on programming. And in fact, I have books on programming when I want to learn a new language, but I kind of go through them a little bit. I learn mostly by playing around with it. I'm sure you've done the same thing. You sit down with your computer, you got a new program. In fact, I've got to get this for you. Where is that? Here we go. You got a new program, and you got it's important program, big program. So you buy the book, and it's really big, and it's got everything you need. And you look at it and say, yeah, fine, let me play. And you sit down and you screw around with the computer and you play, and that's how you learn. Your native instinct is right. The right way to learn to do things is to play with them. And the wonderful thing about computers is if you're making an image and you screw up the image and oh my God, I ruined it. Well, undo, and we're right back where we started. That's the value of computers. You can play, make mistakes, but not ruin everything. And that's where computers become really great for educational purposes. And that's the way you need to think of your communications. If you want to communicate powerfully to your people, you don't want to just throw the information in their face. If you want to communicate ideas, you've got to let them play with the ideas. And the only way they're going to play with those ideas is if you can put those ideas in algorithmic form inside the computer. And that's why you need things like blend and these the bounded numbers and all of this stuff. But you've got to understand how to express the ideas. For example, I did, let me just tell you about some of my stuff. I've got a lovely program called Balance of the Planet, which discusses environmental stuff and global warming and all sorts of other things. And why are we doing such a bad job on climate change? Well, the answer is that it's just so complicated that people don't understand the nature of all the trade-offs. And so I have to communicate that idea. And the way I do it is I came up with a big list of all the considerations that might go into dealing with climate change. Poor people not having enough food to eat, the global economic output, how much carbon dioxide we're releasing, how much radioactivity comes from nuclear power plants, how many nuclear power plants we have, how much coal there is, how much oil and gas and so forth. There was something like, I think roughly about 100 of these factors. And then I simply wrote simple equations for every factor. I said, look, the amount of coal we have left is very simply equal to the original amount minus how much we use. Okay, that's an easy equation. What's the price of coal? Well, that's a little more complicated equation, but it's straight out of economics, price and supply and demand. How many people are starving to death? Well, that depends on how many people we have, the population. That's one of the numbers I have in there. And how much food we're growing. Well, how much, so I put those two numbers together with a blend, and I've got the amount of starvation going on. But how do we calculate how much food we have? Well, that depends on how much agricultural farmland we have and agricultural tools like tractors and things like fertilizer. And so I have equations for how much fertilizer there is, how many tractors there are, how much farmland there is. I put those together to come up with food production. And you just go on and on with this stuff. It's big, but each part of it is small. And so you just pile them all on top of each other in a huge, huge pile, and whoosh, you got a simulation. Now, it's actually not quite that easy, because the first time you run your simulation, something goes wrong and something else goes wrong. So, oh my God, we produce so much food, we buried the planet in food. I think my formula must be wrong. And so you adjust the formula a little bit. And then you do another one. Oh my God, everybody starved to death. Adjust the formula again. And you just go through this process of adjusting formulas and rearranging things, taking that balance and weighting factor, and you push it up a little, or maybe you push it down a little. That's all it takes. It's a lot of busy work, but it's not genius work. It's not like I had to prepare myself and sit in front of the computer and it's just a lot of, you've done this kind of work before. This is what we do with computers. So anyway, that's one example. I'll mention another example. Probably my most effective game was called Balance of Power, Geopolitics in the Nuclear Age. And I did this We published this in 1984. Were any of you alive then? Oh, geez. Well, let me tell you, see, back then nuclear war was a big worry. Everybody was worried, oh my God, can we have Ronald Reagan as president? I'm gonna show those Ruskies. And so everybody was worried there was gonna be a nuclear war. And so I wrote a game about the politics, the diplomacy that could get you into a nuclear war. And it involved things like sending weapons to the guerrillas in another country, or giving them economic aid, or a variety of other policies. It was all actually very simple by modern standards. And I will say, much to my dismay, this game, which is, God, 38 years old now, I have yet to see another game as sophisticated as Balance of Power. And that's really, really bad. There have been a number of games about political stuff, and God, they're beautiful, like video and audio and all sorts of wonderful stuff, but they're stupid. They don't really show how the processes work. And that's what I did in Balance of Power. Now, first, I collected a lot of books. I must have read about 30 or 40 books about diplomacy, the history of diplomacy, geopolitical stuff, nuclear weapons, arms control. I read a lot of stuff until I understood, until I understood it adequately. I understood it enough to be able to do the job. And so then I started expressing those ideas mathematically. Specifically, I had equations for how committed a superpower, the USA or the Soviet Union, was to a particular country. For example, if the US gave weapons to guerrillas in Poland, at that time, Poland was part of the Warsaw Pact under the control of the Soviet Union. If US was giving weapons to Poland, to the guerrillas fighting against the Polish government, Soviet Union would be very, very upset, and you could easily get yourself into a war. And there was a formula. How upset is the Soviet Union? Well, it depends on how close Poland is to the Soviet Union, and how many weapons I'm sending, and how serious the rebellion is. And just putting the numbers together, multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. So we are out of time now. Would you like to see more detail? Maybe next week is our last meeting. Would you like me to go through one of these, Balance of the Planet or Balance of Power, or one of my other games? Those are my two most normal simulations. A lot of the stuff I did were strategy war games, and I don't think those are of any interest to you. But, or here we go. Here are three choices for me to go through. One of my interactive storytelling projects. So I can talk about how personality, how people make dramatically significant decisions, and take you through examples of those. Two, Balance of the Planet, ecology, economics, climate change, how we calculate those things to determine the results. Three, Balance of Power, the geopolitics of interaction between nuclear superpowers. Which of those three, could each of you just type into the chat, which of those three would be your favorite? Okay. Interactive storytelling, Oh, the storytelling seems to be the one common denominator. Okay, okay. I will start preparing something for that for you for next week. Any last questions?
You have to go play with the blend now.
I'm sorry?
You have to go play with the blend now.
Yes, yes, please do. You learn best by playing. In fact, I'll point out some of my greatest results have come by playing, but there was the time I set the physics lab on fire. I mean, sometimes these things don't quite work out, but please play as much as possible. And one other thing, you guys have really got to learn the idea of play as conversation. You need to be coming back at me saying, wait a minute, what about this? Or so forth. You've been trained in the European style where you sit on your butt and you listen to the smart man or the smart woman. That's not good enough. You got to start acting. Play with the instructor. Oh yeah, you think that's true? What if you did this? Work on that. That will make you a better student and you will learn more. So think about it, and I will see you guys next week. And I'll be posting this video on my YouTube thing. So, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.